Hey guys, Captain Dylan Hubbard here at Hubbard's Marina, and it's time for your Sunday night live stream show. Hopefully you're ready to win some free trips, talk fishing, get your questions answered live during the show. I'm ready to give you $1,500 in free stuff. That's right, y'all. It's Sunday night, and it's time for that live stream show. We do this every Sunday night at 7:30 p.m. right here on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Trovo, all those different pages, and hopefully you're ready for another great show. We always start these things off talking a little bit about what's going on now, what's coming up, showing you photos, talking about the weather, making a few announcements, and then we answer your questions live during the show. This is a Q&A show. Make sure you text in your questions to that phone number on the screen. Also, want to make sure we give a shout out and some love to our friends over at Gator Jim's Tackle. If you haven't stopped by to see our friends at Gator Jim's Tackle, make sure you do so. 3301 Pinellas Point Drive South in St. Pete. Our friends at Gator Jim's make this show possible along with viewers like you. So definitely stop by, say hi to our friends at Gator Jim's Tackle. They've got a huge selection. They've got killer deals. It is an awesome place with really good people. Definitely worth a visit. You want to stop by and say hello. Also, don't forget to tell them Hubbard's Marina sent you, and you'll get a free gift for the young angler in your life if you bring a young angler along with you. So definitely worth stopping by to say hello. Also, want to make sure we give a shout out to all those in our supporters group. Our supporters group also helps to fuel and fund and make this show possible as well. So big shout out to all the supporters out there. For those unaware, we just went on a absolutely free 12-hour supporters fishing trip. It was a blast, and we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight as well. Been fishing twice this past week, once with our supporters group on Monday, and then again Thursday with the folks from Fox 13 News. We're going to talk about that tonight as well. So lots of good info to discuss, and we are on the doorstep, the eve, if you will, of my favorite, least favorite time of year, red snapper season, and it is here. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So lots to talk about tonight. Then finally, want to make sure we give a shout out to all of those who are sending stars. If you're not watching on Facebook, stars are a way for those who are watching on Facebook who choose to help fuel the show as well. So Rick Rogers, appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for the stars. Noah Smith as well. Justin Bendis, Sam Lang with a big 1,300. Thank you, Sam Lang. Katrina McDougal with 500. Appreciate you, Katrina. Noah Smith again with a big 500. Brian Eakins, LaShonda, Jasmine Marie, Yukimi Barker, Stephen Moreland, Glenn Foster with a big 500. James McCullum with a big 500. Todd Stutzman, Jason Irwine, Angie Darling, and Daryl Johansson with a big 1,000 stars. Thank you all so much. Edmund Landry, appreciate the share. Pete, appreciate the share. Angel, thank you for the share as well. All of those big shares help out a lot. Noah Smith, Jeremy Shelton, Keith White, Michael Gatewood, Denoris Hall, Nick Nieves, Jeff Reedy. Thank you for sharing the stream. Don't forget to share the stream. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to like. Every like and every comment helps us to reach more people. So like, comment, share definitely helps us out, helps spread the word. And then finally, you want to win free stuff tonight? You want to win $1,500 in free stuff? We're going to be giving away a 5-hour half day for 2, a 10-hour all day for 2, a 39-hour for 1, and our Hubbard's Marina swag pack. In order to win, though, you do have to comment at least one time. You do have to watch the show actually live in real time. And then, if you see your name come across the screen and we announce your name, you got 5 minutes or less to text us your full home address to the phone number on the screen. So make sure you comment, make sure you watch live, and make sure you stay tuned. If we announce your name, you got 5 minutes or less to claim it and prove you're watching live. So sit back, relax. We're going to get into the photos, then we're going to talk a little bit about the weather, do some announcements, then we're going to answer your questions. Remember, if you have a question, drop it to a text message to the phone number on the screen. Now, with that, let's see what we've been catching. Right now, lately, we've been seeing some of these black drum coming around. Definitely a good time to go hunting for those black drum in and around those grass flats and mangrove shorelines, and even dock lines too. This is a nice houndfish, I saw a big houndfish. I was out on the jet ski yesterday with my son, and we were cruising down the beach, and I saw something strange caught my eye, and I kind of turned over. It was the biggest houndfish I think I've ever seen cruising the beach. The water is absolutely stunning right now. The half-day fishing trip today was fishing in 38 foot of water, and you could watch the gray snapper on the bottom take your bait. It is ridiculous, heinously beautiful out there right now. If you were thinking about getting on the water, it's a great time to do it. Maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, the traffic is a little crazy right now inside Johns Pass. So we've actually canceled tomorrow's afternoon half day just because it's such a challenge to get into Johns Pass in the afternoon. Today was silly. There's so many people out on that beach smoking weed and swimming inside Johns Pass. There was 3 water rescues yesterday because people kept swimming in Johns Pass. So that's a whole nother show, but it's ridiculous. So long story short, we're trying to focus everybody to the morning and just rip the Band-Aid off and get it over with as far as trying to get people into the pass. So come out Tuesday, come out Wednesday, come out Thursday, come out Friday. Then the weather's going to pick up a little bit, and when that weather picks up a little bit, it's going to make that water murky again. So we are expecting the wind to kick up a little bit this weekend. So get out and enjoy, or at least put eyes on this beautiful weather. And if you wait till Tuesday, traffic will be back to normal around the pass, and it's definitely worth it. Look at that water behind Mr. Sadorf, Scott Sadorf, the man, the myth, the legend, and his friend Annie, I want to say. He's going to give me heat. I forget her name off the top of my head. But she caught this nice houndfish. Beautiful water on the beach right now, and you can sight fish the snook. Occasional pompano, maybe a redfish. There's some black drum moving around out there. Definitely the occasional cobia is possible. And then, of course, tarpon moving up and down the beach, too. Now, redfish action mostly in the bay right now. We're seeing some of the redfish around the pass and around the jetty and around the bridge, but mostly up in the bay right now, hanging underneath those docks, underneath those mangrove shorelines. This was caught really close to where we are, and it was hiding up underneath the shade. It's that time of year. They get up underneath the shade. They're looking for some reprieve from the heat. So if you cast a bait right along that shade line, you're going to catch one of those redfish. Snook even do the same thing, trout. But snook early morning is the good time to get them right now. Once it starts to be about mid-morning, it gets real tough to find a cooperative snook because water temperatures just skyrocket. Remember, the Caribbean right now is as hot as it normally is in August. It is May, and it is hot in the Caribbean right now as it normally is in August. Key West broke the heat index record in May. So I'm a little concerned what September and August has in store for us, because if we're already breaking heat index records and the Caribbean is already at August water temperatures, where are we going to be at come August? So a little scary about that, but long story short, it is definitely really kicked into high gear, those summertime patterns with the snook. And here is that beautiful beach water and a beautiful beach snook. Definitely a good time to get out there early morning and hunt for those snook just after sunrise. Trout, same thing. Our friend Luke Simons from Salt Strong. If you aren't a Salt Strong member yet, you're missing out. Remember, if you go to saltstrong.com/Hubbard or /Hubbards, there's 2 different deals that you can get from Salt Strong, and really, really, really good value. They do this thing called the weekend fishing forecast, similar to what we do as well, but theirs is obviously much more inshore focused, and it's also really hyper focused inshore. They did this thing where they show drone footage and then Luke breaks it down, and one cool thing he talks a lot about is how early morning right now these fish are really, really more active because over the night it's cooled off a little bit, so early morning they're able to get out over the flat and start feeding, especially if we have a good tide that coincides with that like pre-sunrise time frame. It starts to move the bait and the fish start to feed more actively, and that's when those surface lures, those poppers, are working really, really well to get those trout active for sure. So good time to get out there early morning and find the more active fish. But that's about it inshore right now. Definitely focused on the snook if you're fishing around Johns Pass, snook is the focus, followed by mangrove snapper. There's a ton of them around, followed by sheep's head. If you're going to fish during the day, really mangrove snapper are going to be your focus, maybe a side of sheep's head. If you're fishing early morning, you got a chance for those snook. You might see a redfish, but really overnight, early morning, you got chances for snook. During the day around Johns Pass, it's mostly mangrove snapper. You might see a spadefish or a sheep's head. Maybe a flounder, maybe a trout, but it's been a lot of mangrove snapper action for sure. Actually, I was fishing with my son. What's today? Today's Sunday. Yesterday, around Johns Pass from along the seawall there, the Treasure Island side, where it comes into Johns Pass and starts to curve to the south. And we were working that seawall with some silver spoons, just destroying some really nice big mangrove snapper. It was pretty fun. So there are a lot of mangrove snapper around for sure, and you can find some big ones. You just got to hunt and peck and find that rock they're hanging around. So that's about it. Inshore, let's move near shore and offshore and show you guys what we're catching out a little deeper. We are still seeing the occasional hogfish. Hogfish bite has slowed down quite a bit now that water temperatures are really creeping up. These hogfish get more spread out, more leader shy, and they live in large groups, harems. One male gets with a couple females, and they spread off the ledges out into that shelly bottom, sandy bottom. So they get a lot more difficult to target with hook and line, less concentrated this time of year as that water temperature rises. So once we get back into the cooler months, those cold fronts start again, they start to get a little bit more concentrated back onto those ledges for sure. Now, we are still picking a few hogfish. Live shrimp's going to be your best bet, light tackle. So you got to chop for hogfish, but definitely has slowed down a little bit. The big news as of late on our near shore fishing adventures are definitely the mangrove snapper. We've been seeing some really big mangrove snapper. You can see the big mangrove snapper here. Lance is holding Christine, his wife, she caught all the big mangrove snapper. It was really impressive, but she was nice enough to let him hold one, so that's cool. But yes, a lot of mangrove snapper near shore right now has been the ticket, and few really nice red grouper as well. So some really good options out there. As you can see, here's a red grouper. We're seeing some of those red grouper on the 12-hour night snapper trips. We're seeing a lot of red grouper during the day as well. But this full moon really brought with it some good pushes of red grouper at night. Generally, red grouper is more of a daytime catch, but the red grouper at night definitely became a little bit more prolific around that full moon. Here's a fat mangrove snapper from our supporters 12-hour adventure. Christina was definitely putting on a clinic for the rest of the boat on the big mangroves. Here is from our Tuesday 39-hour trip. They did really well out there with some nice red grouper, some solid numbers of mangrove snapper, nice African pompano, and some lanes mixed in there. We did catch a cobia this week on the hub. You never know what you might see. And then we went out there Thursday with our friends from Fox 13 News, and this is our good friend Dave Osterberg. Dave Osterberg's been at Fox 13 for over 20 years. He is the weather guy, the weatherman in the morning, and it was funny that we all talk about the weather guys, right? And how sometimes they get it wrong, and the weather guy, oh, he's blah, blah, blah. We always talk a little bit of smack about the weather guy. Well, Thursday morning, they were forecasting like 1.5 foot. It was a little bit more than that. We got a little bit more than we bargained for on the Flying Hub 2, but I have to say, Dave Osterberg, Russell Rhodes, all the folks from Fox 13, the behind-the-scenes folks that came with us, they handled it like pros, and they weathered the storm. But it was the whole ride, I was kind of laughing to myself, like, oh, the weather guy is experiencing what we experience when his forecasts are wrong. So it was kind of ironic. I guess, I don't know if I'm the only one who found that funny, but I found it ironic. Some nice gag grouper definitely have been caught and released. We are seeing some good numbers, so we're hoping that bodes well for future stock assessments that are coming up. Karen and a nice mangrove snapper from the 12-hour trip. Here is John. John here holding this red grouper is our Fox 13 camera guy. So every Friday morning I see John, and he sets up the camera and makes what we do Friday morning possible. So that's the man behind the camera there. And definitely some big red snapper caught and released as of late, getting ready for Saturday. Season's opening up. Got beautiful scamp grouper out there on the 12-hour extreme with the Fox 13 folks. And Russell Rhodes did hold a fish. He didn't like it too much, but he did it. And he put his hand in the gill and everything. And Russell Rhodes and Dave both were dropping down, feeling the bite, setting the hook, and retrieving those fish. It's pretty cool. Now, Russell's been at Fox 13 for almost 30 years. So these are like two of the big names in Tampa Bay. And the whole day I was kind of thinking about it. It's like, it's really cool. We took 50 years experience on television, almost 70 miles into the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, where else do you hear about like the head anchor, the head weather guy heading out into the middle of the Gulf, right? It's pretty cool that Fox A, let them do that, and B, they were willing to do that, and C, they went out there and did so well on the fishing. It was really, really cool. So cool experience. And the full fishing show, they filmed quite a bit while we were out there. The full segment is going to air this coming Friday. So if you're interested in it on Fox 13, it'll air, I think, 4 times, they said, during their morning show, probably at 7, 8, 9, and 10 a.m. And also, if you're not from the area and you don't get Fox 13 news, you can watch it on their website. And then they always post it to their website too. So they're going to cut it down and make it like a 2 or 3 minute segment on the news, but they're going to make like a 12 to 15 minute segment, like the full story, and they're going to post that to their website. So you'll be able to see both, even if you don't live here, on their website after it airs as well. So it's going to be pretty cool. Definitely some good fishing as of late. Here's some 39-hour stringers, some big triggerfish. This is your last chance for triggerfish. They closed June and July. Remember, Dave caught both of these triggerfish. He was tearing them up. It was a good time out there for sure. We had a great time catching plenty of red grouper, mangrove snapper, triggerfish to catch and keep, and some big vermilions and porgies along with them. And then we caught and released some big red snapper and big gag grouper. That group gag was a hog, dude. And it was kind of a weird bite. They were like sitting on top of it. So I dropped down a really big bait, and I had little fish pecking at the bait, right? So I lifted my rod tip. I dropped down real slow because it was a big piece of bait. I didn't want it to tangle me up. So I dropped down real slow. When I hit bottom, I stayed there for a minute and didn't move anything for like a solid minute and a half, 2 minutes. And I felt little pecks at the bait, but I didn't want to set the hook because I knew they were small fish just eating at my big bait. So I kind of waited a second, and then after about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, didn't get a big bite, I lifted that rod tip up real slowly and dropped it back down to bottom real slowly. And the idea with that is it pulls that bait away from the small fish, and it kind of shows the big fish hanging out back that there's a big bait there waiting for them. And so I waited a second, didn't feel anything, but the small peck stopped. So that told me there was a big fish sitting there ready to attack that bait. So I sat there patiently, made sure I was dancing with the boat, keeping that bait still, and nothing happened. So I went to lift my rod tip up again just to see what was going on, if I still had bait or if one of those little fish had pecked it off there. And as soon as I lifted my rod tip up a second time, he just whacked it. It was crazy. So, and then it was on and popping. It was a big battle, but it was fun, and we won the battle and got the fish up. But caught and released them, put them on the descending device, and got them back down to bottom. And we're going to go back out there and get them come gag grouper season. But we've got Capt Mike Anderson on the line. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
Doing well. Wasn't sure if you were going to make it on tonight. I didn't want to bother you on this holiday weekend, but I appreciate you joining us, my friend.
I'm actually joining you from New York City.
Whoa.
So, yeah.
Did you go fishing today?
No, we don't fish until Tuesday.
Okay.
Actually, I had never been to New York City before.
Really?
When we scheduled this shoot, Beth and Georgia had come when Georgia was younger. Beth brought Georgia. She had a niece that went to school here, so they came in to see her and spent a couple days. And so I've been really blessed being in the military and then, filming and fishing a lot of places. I've been to quite a few places.
Yeah.
I've flown out of New York before, but I've never spent any time in New York City. So Beth and I just kind of came in a few days early.
That's
She
awesome.
flies out tomorrow. I go over. We're actually on 42nd, and Lexington is where our hotel is, not far from Grand Central Station.
Nice.
And then tomorrow I go to Jersey City, where I'll meet up with Cameron and the camera guys, and Josh Clymer from Aqua Traction is going to join me, and we're going to fish with Frank Crisatelli, who, interestingly enough, it seems like everybody that I talk to in the industry, my pen guys, the old guys at Ray Marine, Tom Patassi, who him and I have been friends for years since I was with Ray Marine. Everybody knows Frank.
That's cool.
So I'm super excited, to go fishing with him. He said the fish have just now over the last week, kind of on this moon, pushed into the river. So he thinks we can catch some big stripers in the river here, close to the Statue of Liberty, which will be pretty cool. So,
That's
you know,
awesome.
Real Animals Adventures, yeah, it's kind of what it's all about. So I'm excited. New York will, if you've never been here, in my opinion, it will suck the life out of you. It's so loud, and there is so much stuff going on.
Yep.
It's so much sensory overload.
Very much so.
It's just crazy. So I'm looking forward to just getting on the water.
Yeah, I went there one time, or actually, no, I've been there twice, and it was absolutely awe-inspiring. The first time I was pretty young, and I was, like, with family, you know, so you're, like, insulated. You didn't think too much about it. The second time,
Right.
it was just my wife and I, and, like, we were staying in Jersey, and we took, like, a bus over, so we were, like, on our
Right.
own, had to navigate by ourselves, and, like, my wife was kind of looking at me, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. It was wild,
Right.
and it was, like, 9 degrees and blowing 30. It was
Ooh.
It was nuts, man. It was nuts.
Yeah.
It was really fun, though. It's definitely worth a visit. And seeing the
Yeah, it's a
Statue of
neat
Liberty,
city.
there's nothing
Yeah.
more America about that. And it's really cool you get to go fishing in front of it, too. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. He's saying we got a shot. If the fish are stacked up in front, we may catch one right there. But it's
That's
just
awesome.
a neat, the architecture. You know, Times Square was cool. We went to Central Park today.
Nice.
The food's been absolutely amazing, as you can imagine. My bride is really good at navigating the food situation.
Oh, yeah.
Her sister and brother-in-law came with us,
Nice.
and she's been here several times, so that kind of helped us with the subway scene and
Nice.
you know, kind of trying to figure out how to get around town.
Translated the city. So
Yeah, it's
you-
cool. Cool place.
you missed the full moon hill tide in late May?
Well, I left Thursday.
Oh, okay.
We
so
flew
you
in
fished
here
it.
Thursday, so it was pretty. Yeah, and it was, and that's really why I wanted to call, because the fishing's been spectacular. I mean, leading up to that full moon, the
Nuts.
bite was just absolutely fantastic. I mean, the water temps are up a little bit, I think, from May.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we were pushing, 88 plus, which is pretty high this time of year.
Yeah.
But and we caught redfish, snook, and trout, just about everywhere we went. The tarpon bite was really, really good. A lot of guys had great tarpon bites, some great tarpon bites even in the morning.
Yeah.
I was getting great reports from the Skyway in the morning, which normally on those hill tides, those fish will hunker down until that
Yeah.
outgoing tide. But first thing in the morning, that bite was really, really good on the incoming tide, and then obviously it was really good on the outgoing tide. So
Don't you think
Don't
you think for this time of year, it being hotter than it normally is, the water is stupid clear. Normally it starts to get a little murky by now. It really hasn't, and stayed clear. It even gotten clearer, really. It's like gin clear. And then on top of that, we were right on a full moon, and the daytime bite has just been stellar. Inshore, near shore, and even offshore. It's crazy.
Agreed. Well, and it's interesting that you say that, because we had some wind that dirtied up a couple of places, East Beach, some places that are normally a pretty strong bite.
Mm-hmm.
But as we fished them early in the week, and they were dirty. And the bite was okay in those spots. It wasn't great. The cleaner water we found, the better the bite was. What was amazing to me is how quickly, which I guess makes sense being on the full moon, having those big tides.
Yeah.
But, man, that water cleaned up quick. And it seemed like because we had the big tides, and what those big tides give you as an inshore fisherman is that if you fish an area that you really, really like, and it should be good this time of year, you go there on one day and there's nothing there. You go there the next day and it will absolutely go off because of those big tides. fish just have the opportunity and the ability to move all over the place. So it was a really interesting week. Like we, caught quite a few fish every day, but there was a couple spots I went into where I'm like, I don't like this. The water's dirty.
Yeah.
Wind's been kind of blowing on it. Let's get out of here. Didn't see a lot of mullet. And then within 24 hours, we went back in there to check it out, and it was already cleaned up. Wow. The mullet were back in there, and the fish were all over it. So it was really, really kind of interesting. Yeah, it was an interesting moon phase for sure.
It was the
Maybe
same
that
thing.
had something to do with that water temp high.
It was the same thing offshore. I mean, normally around that full moon, especially right on the full moon, the bite can kind of be a little tough during the daytime. But this weekend's 44-hour, they had a stellar daytime bite. They crushed it at night. He texted me early morning while we were live on the radio show Saturday morning. We crushed it, 300-plus mangroves, 25-plus red grouper. They just had a stellar night bite, and I was like, oh, man, that's awesome, but, man, daytime sounds like it might be a little bit rough with that good of a night bite. Well, they ended up having the best amberjack catch ever, really, in the last couple years on this 44-hour during the day, and still caught mangrove snapper all day, and still caught plenty of other heads and tails too. So, and we saw the same thing Monday before the moon on the supporters trip, catching a ton of mangrove snapper during the day. Thursday on the moon with the Fox 13 guys, we caught a bunch of mangrove snapper during the day. Then again, over the weekend on the 44-hour post-moon, caught mangrove snapper during the day. So it was definitely one of those full moons that the fish seemingly didn't respond or just like fished a bit hard all the way through it. It was very, very unique. And the water is crazy near shore too. I was talking about it before you called. Today on the half-day trip, from the wheelhouse, you could see the ledge and you could see the fish taking the squid on the bottom.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that nuts? So literally right
crazy.
now, if you got a bay boat, you can go out there and go find all the rocks that are in the Gulf of Mexico by sight.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
It's
that's
crazy.
a nice added bonus. Yeah, nice added bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was an interesting. We had a bite on. I had a bite on Wednesday, where, and it doesn't happen very often, but every now and then you'll get on a school of redfish, and you're watching your watch. You got your customers. We had already caught some snook. We had already caught some trout. I was looking for a few redfish. I went into a spot where we were the day before. The water was dirty. It cleaned up. We start catching these redfish one after another, and I'm looking at my watch. I'm looking at my Simrad, and I'm watching the tide run out.
Wow.
Like, I'm like, okay, we're only doing a half day. We're going to run out of tide here. We caught plenty of fish. They didn't stop eating when the tide stopped.
Huh.
They ate all the way through the tide.
That's crazy.
Like, the tide was coming in when we first got there. The tide stopped, and I thought, okay, they're going to stop chewing. Nope, they never stopped chewing. And then when the tide started to go out, they just kept on chewing. And it happens just a couple times a year when you have a day where you're like, at the end of it, you look at your watch and you go, they ate all the way through the tide. Like, half the time you're scratching your head trying to make excuses to your customers. You're like, well, why did the bite stop? Well, the bite stopped because the tide stopped. That's what happened. It was crazy on Wednesday that they just ate right through the tide. I'm like, okay, well, this is great. Bonus.
Yeah.
Bonus.
It's one of those great examples that, like, moon phase, tides, people get so wrapped up in what's the best time to go fishing, all that kind of stuff. But you can sometimes get too caught up in the variables. Sometimes it doesn't matter. And this week was one of those special weeks. And I think that's going to continue through this coming work week on the backside of this full moon before that weather kicks off this weekend. I
saw the weather's going to change. The weather's going to be beautiful all week this week.
Of course. Yeah, June 1st, the weather's going to go bad. Yeah. We know that. I've known that.
It's going to go to hell in a
months.
handbasket. Yes. It's going to go to hell in a handbasket. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. So I saw that coming.
Somebody from Jupiter just chimed in from the sport fishing capital of the world, where they don't have, I think they have like, what, a 2-day red snapper season, right, Mike Dixon? You have to fill me in there, bud, because our 3-month red snapper season is about to kick off in the Gulf, so you have to inform us. Don't you guys have like a 2-gag grouper boat limit over there, Mike Dixon? you have to fill us in here from the sport fishing capital of the world. Oh,
yeah,
man.
give Dixon a hard time. That's
Of
perfect.
Of course, always. Our
Yeah.
friend from
He
Ingle
deserves a hard
Coolers.
time. Exactly. One of the best guys on the planet, but he certainly deserves a hard time.
And he
sure.
thinks he lives in a better part of Florida over there in Jupiter, and they have so many sharks you can't even get a bait to bottom. It's crazy. Oh, man. We have a shark problem, but it's not as bad as Jupiter, let me tell you.
Yeah, we do have a shark problem. There's no doubt about that.
Crazy.
No doubt about that. Yeah, they're beating up our tarpon, too, a little bit still. So
Yeah, there's some more big sharks caught off the beach this week, so it is definitely a little bit sharky out there for sure. But I'll let you go.
Yeah,
One thing I wanted to say to you before you hop off is thanks for your service, my friend. Happy Memorial Day.
Hey, brother, I appreciate you. And, that's the big thing going into this holiday, barbecues and everything's on sale, all of that stuff is great, but it's Memorial Day has a much, much bigger meaning. It's time to remember those that have fallen serving this great country. So
Amen.
Hopefully everybody has a very, very warm, happy, enjoyable day off, but just try to remember what it's all about. I appreciate the time, my brother. Wanted to reach out from the Big Apple here. Hopefully we'll catch them up, and I'll have good stories for the radio show next weekend.
All right, I look forward to it. Tell Miss Beth we said hello, and thank you for your time.
All right, brother. Be good.
See
Thanks.
you, man.
See you.
From the Big Apple, calling us from the city. That's pretty hardcore. So definitely, like Mike said, it sounds like inshore was a special week too. It is just such a great time to get out there on the water, and this is really a good week to do it. As Mike stated, weather should stay beautiful, water is super clear, fishing is going really well before that wind picks up this weekend. And then also keep in mind, kids are going to start getting out of school here up north. Kids get out of school next week, so we're going to start to see more people come down this area too. So tomorrow's probably not a great day because it's still a holiday weekend. There's still going to be a ton of people around. But if you can get some time off of work this week, or if you're one of those people that work weekends and you have time off during the week, come out Tuesday, come out Wednesday, come out Thursday, come out Friday. The weather is beautiful. Water is super clear. There's not that many people around yet. It is super hot, but it's not as hot as it's going to get, right? So it's not as crazy hot as it will be. So get out there and enjoy it this week for sure. You don't want to miss out. So I think we covered all the photos. Let's just hop back into the photos real quick, Josh, make sure we didn't miss anything. Because we were talking about that big gag grouper. I think we had a couple more photos, didn't we? Just 2 more photos, that was it. Big red snapper. That one was a monster. Caught and released that one. It had to be like probably close to 17 pounds. It's a big dog. We already looked at that one, I think. So good fishing all the way around this week, as I was saying. So we showed you guys what we've been catching. We talked to Captain Mike. It's time to give away our first free trip of the night. Then we're going to get into the weather a little bit. We've already kind of covered the weather, but we're going to chat about that, and then we're going to get into your questions. Remember, if you have a question, make sure you text it in to the phone number on the screen. So with that, let's find out who won our first free trip of the night. Let's go ahead and give away our 5-hour half day for 2. 5-hour half day for 2 to our good friend Mike Upham. Congratulations, Mike. Definitely missed you at the supporters fishing trip. And he said, happy Memorial Day to all. Definitely a very happy Memorial Day. As we started to mention with Capt. Mike Anderson, definitely want to make sure you remember the reason for the holiday is not partying on the beach, even though that's a good time. Not barbecues with family, which is another good idea. But it's all about remembering those who made the ultimate sacrifice. So make sure it's not necessarily about veterans, but you also want to make sure you thank a veteran and show them respect as well. But also those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, their families, because remember, someone decides to serve the country and make a sacrifice for the country and then ultimately makes the ultimate sacrifice for the country, their family is very heavily impacted as well. And then you have all those who go and serve and then come back and have to deal with that fallout or long-term ramifications from it as well, with PTSD and all these other issues that come about with traumatic brain injuries and all these other issues. So a lot of people out there dealing with stuff from their service and sacrifice to this country. So that's what it's all about. make sure you keep that at the forefront as we move through this weekend. So we talked a little bit about the weather. We gave away our first we talked a little bit about what we're catching. We gave away our first free trip. Let's talk a little bit about the weather. Popping over to hubbardsmarina.com, we're going to click fishing trips. We're going to hit weather links. Second weather link down, our wind finder forecast area is what we're going to check first. And as you can see, gorgeous really all this week until we get into June 1st, ironically. So, as I said, today, absolutely spectacularly beautiful. Doesn't get any better. Tomorrow, spectacular. Doesn't get any better. Tuesday does not get any better. Super beautiful Tuesday. Wednesday, late afternoon, Wednesday night, possibly might pick up a little bit, but not much. Just a quick little spike, probably a little bit of a storm front. And then Thursday gets a little bit more moderate, but still very, very nice overall until we get into Saturday. Sunday, it starts to pick up a little bit. So definitely a little bit of a breezier condition as we get into the weekend. So it is gorgeous all week. Your best fishing days definitely look to be Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday look good as well. Really look great as well, but Tuesday looks like a picture-perfect, right home about kind of day for sure. And Tuesday's all day has 21 people on it. That's what I was pulling up. So 21 people. So just barely a trip. And it is going to be one of the nicest weather days around. And definitely, if I was you, I would take advantage of that because there's more and more people showing up every day. Trips are going to get more and more full. Popping back to hubbardsmarina.com. Again, second one down is the weather links. We're going to go to the alternate storm forecast, spaghettimodels.com. And I'm interested to see, I think it's just simply a high pressure, but what's causing the weather Saturday. So here is Wednesday, low pressure pushing down on us. Here is Thursday, that low pressure stalls, become an occluded front. Friday, it backs up on us. So, yeah, so a stalled cold front, and then it decides to push through Saturday. So we have a cold front pushing down. Wednesday, so that must be what causes that storm chance Wednesday night we saw on Windfinder. And it doesn't quite make it down. It stalls out Thursday and backs up a little bit. That's what brings the more moderate weather Thursday and Friday, that storm front to our north. And then finally, Saturday, it decides to push through. So that's when the high pressure builds up behind it. So that's why we see exactly what we see here. Beautiful Monday, Tuesday. Really, Tuesday's fishing and weather should be even better now because we know Wednesday a front's bearing down on the area. Then Wednesday, it picks up a little bit at night because that's prefrontal activity ahead of that storm front. Then Thursday, that storm front stalls, backs up, but because that ridge is just north of us, that's what's going to make it moderately windy, basically 10 to 15 Thursday and Friday. A little bit of a breeze, not much. And then finally it pushes through Saturday, and that high pressure builds behind it. And it's going to be a stronger high pressure because that frontal boundary will be fighting it. So that's what's causing this wind over the weekend. So that'll be interesting. And it's also going to tell us that it's probably not going to be super rough over the weekend for our 39-hour trip. So if you're sitting there panicked that you have a 39-hour trip for red snapper opener, I wouldn't worry too much about that because most likely wouldn't be affected with that east wind. But if you have like the Flying Hub 2 booked, might be a little bit more challenging. We're going to have to definitely keep our eye on that, but shouldn't be too crazy. So if you have a question, make sure you send it in to the phone number on the screen because now we've talked about the fishing, we've talked to Capt Mike, we've talked about the weather. It's time to get into your questions. Before we get into the questions, though, y'all, Friday is Final Friday. So you like free food? You like free drinks? You like some crawfish? Join us for Final Friday. This Final Friday is Final Friday. Every last Friday of every month is Final Friday. Hopefully you can join us. It's going to be a great time. Again, Final Friday. You don't want to miss out. 6 to 9 p.m. every last Friday of every month. Also, today and tomorrow are your last two opportunities to vote for Hubbard's Marina as the #1 charter boat in the entire country. That's right. USA Today has nominated Hubbard's Marina again. I think this is our 4th year now nominated as best charter boat in the country. We won it last year, and we want to win it for a 2nd year in a row. So make sure you follow us on social media and make sure you vote for us. Josh has dropped the link in the chat. Make sure you vote for Hubbard's Marina again every day, today and tomorrow. Voting ends tomorrow, so tomorrow's your last day.
At noon.
Tomorrow is your last chance at noon, so you got to vote before noon tomorrow. And voting is closed, and we'll find out June 5th if we won again, 2nd year in a row, best charter boat in the country. Thanks to you guys. But we need your help. Voting's almost closed, so make sure you help us out. Let's finish strong, finish on the right foot, and make sure we clinch that top spot. Also, Final Friday's going on. I think that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. With that, let's get into some questions. Answer your questions. What do you know about gag grouper season? So every week we mention it, and we'll mention it again tonight. There's 5 fish that have seasons. Everything else open pretty much all year round, but 5 fish have seasons. Number 1, triggerfish. It's open all year except for June and July. Number 2, red grouper. It's open January 1st, and it's going to end at the end of June this year. Then you have amberjack, open May, September, and October. Then you have... Now I'm questioning myself. I already did it, right? Triggerfish, red grouper, amberjack, gag grouper is going to be September 1st opener. It's going to be open for about a week to 3 weeks is what we're thinking there. A week to 3 weeks. And then red snapper was the 5th one. That's funny. I totally forgot about red snapper there. Put it out of my mind already. So red snapper is the 5th one, and red snapper is going to be June 1st through August 27th. There's a lot of confusion around red snapper because there's 2 red snapper seasons. For private recreational anglers on private boats where money isn't being exchanged, no consideration is made. So you don't barter, you don't offer to mow their lawn, you're just going fishing with a buddy for free on a private boat without any charter permits on it. You can participate in the private recreational red snapper season. So if you go to FWC, if you see something Ron DeSantis, our governor, is talking about, that's a private recreational red snapper season. The private season is June, July, and then weekends, September, October, and November. Our season is the federal for-hire recreational season. It's June 1st through August 27th. We will not be able to fish those weekends, September, October, and November. So that's the 5 fish that have 5 seasons. There's only 5 of them. We just went over all 5. The gag grouper season, again, is going to open September 1st, and it's going to be open for 1, 2, maybe 3 weeks. I'm hoping for 2 weeks, really. I don't realistically think it's going to be 3 weeks. I would be very surprised with 3 weeks. 1 week would suck, but honestly, it wouldn't be surprised. When I look at the numbers and do the math, it could potentially be as short as 1 week. Now, they've told us they're going to announce it by sometime in June. So I'm going to say the end of June to be safe. I'm flying to Houston, Texas at the end of June for the Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Council meeting where I will be speaking as the head of the Reef Fish Advisory Panel and reporting back to the council about our Reef Fish Advisory Panel meeting that we had. And we should be finding out at that meeting what those gag grouper projections will be. So tune in end of June, and we'll keep you abreast of what's going on with gag grouper for sure. Good question here. Will the 12-hour night snapper on the 31st be able to keep red snapper after midnight? No. We just went over the seasons. Your trip has to leave and return during open season. So if you leave on the 31st and you come back June 1st, you would not be able to keep red snapper because you left the dock when the season was closed. Also, the 12-hour night doesn't target red snapper. In order to target red snapper, you want to go on a 12-hour extreme trip, 39-hour trip, or 44-hour trip. The 12-hour night snapper might catch a red snapper, but we wouldn't be able to keep it on the May 31st 12-hour night snapper. Your next 12-hour night snapper, like the first week of June, if you catch one, you're able to keep it. But if you leave May 31st and you return June 1st, you're not able to keep red snapper. The trip departed during closed season. That's why we don't have a Friday, May 31st, 39-hour, because we'd have a lot of confused people when we tell them they can't keep red snapper, because they'd get back to the dock June 2nd, they'd be fishing June 1st, but they legally wouldn't be able to keep red snapper because they left May 31st. So, a little tricky, but they changed that rule recently. Or, they didn't change that rule. They clarified that rule to us, because we were kind of bending that a little bit, and we got slapped on the old wrist a little bit. Long story short, I was complaining about illegal charters at Gulf Council meetings and some of the issues that we were having with blatantly illegal operations, and the head of NOAA Office of Law Enforcement informed me that we were operating an illegal charter. And so it took me 2.5 meetings, about 5 months, to change federal law to allow us to continue to operate our 39-hour trips the way we do now, the way we always have historically with our 2-day bag limits. But during that, they also clarified to me the whole you got to leave and return during open season. So they kind of stuck that one in there on me. What are the best plastics for redfish? I think a paddle tail is definitely a favorite, a soft plastic paddle tail. But some people like those provokers. They work really well too. Some of the super flukes work really well too. But I think paddle tail is probably the most popular. Let's see. When do the boats return? Best times to watch the live stream. Any hope for an underwater live stream? Let's just be happy we got our live streams working now that we have now. Our dock cam and garage cam, Josh has poured a lot of his heart and soul into, and they're very, very strong now.
We've been up for 2 weeks without fail.
2 weeks, the garage cam and dock cam have not had a hiccup. And we were definitely hearing a lot about the issues, but now we're not having issues, and I hope you're enjoying that. So Josh definitely put a lot of effort into it. The underwater live stream camera has always been a dream of mine, but it is unrealistic in John's Pass due to currents, boats coming and going. It is a little bit of a nightmare under there. Plus, just electricity and water don't go well together. It's a challenge. And also, the biggest challenge that we face, because I've tested this, is growth. It would literally be like 18 hours, and there'd be grass growing over the cover of the camera. So it'd be something that we'd have to like put in the water, use for a little while, then take out of the water, turn off, clean. It'd be a nightmare.
I'll get down there in a Speedo.
Yeah, Josh will just swim around with a Speedo and a live stream camera. So hopefully not filming himself.
I mean, I'm not taking the line down.
There you go. So
And the sand.
I would be careful what you ask for as far as the underwater live stream.
Don't worry, it will be a custom-made Hubbard Speedo.
There you go. All right, next question. Moving on from that. There was talk about a hyper-limited number of Goliath groupers that could be kept. How did that go about, and are they allowing it? Yes, they are allowing it. There is a lottery system you can enter, and you can get chosen. There's 250 tags open for the entire state of Florida, but it's a very small window of a slot, and it's pretty hard to get them. Like the fish we catch are over slot, so definitely going to be difficult to get a smaller Goliath grouper that would be legal to be kept. I don't know the particulars, or I knew them, but that rule passed a while ago, and I've forgotten them. But a lot of people were upset at the Goliath grouper regulations because they thought they were too strict as far as being able to keep Goliath groupers. People were hoping that it would be you'd be able to keep larger Goliath groupers. And then also people were upset that it costs money because of it was a little bit of a cost to it. So there's 200 permits available each year. Permits are non-transferable. So permit fees, it's $10 non-refundable. If you are awarded the permit and you're a Florida resident, it's $150 to harvest a Goliath grouper. It's $500 if you're a non-resident. And then where is the... All right, so the harvest permit page is here. So the applications are open October 1st through 15th. So the first half of October is when you can apply. Let's see. Where is the size limits in here? So there's a reporting requirement, which is pretty cool because you have to report what you catch, which is pretty cool. It's not showing me. Maybe in the application. I don't know. It's not readily available, and I don't want to waste too much time on it. But it's a very small limit. And people were upset with that because they thought they should be able to keep a really big Goliath grouper if they paid $10 to get the permit, and then won the permit, had to pay $150. So $160 total. They felt they should be able to kill whatever size Goliath grouper they wanted. But long story short is they needed to open the door, right? Because this is what scares me with gag grouper and really any fish. When you lose fisheries dependent science, you lose a leg of the scientific ability to keep a thumb on the pulse of the fishery, because you need fisheries independent science and you need fisheries dependent science in order to be able to monitor the health of a fishery. So with Goliath grouper, they lost fisheries dependent science because they closed the ability to be able to catch those Goliath grouper. Then they lost fisheries independent science because they stopped allowing even scientific data collection through killing fish. So even scientists weren't allowed to go kill a Goliath grouper. So because they lost that science, there was no objective way to say, hey, this fishery is healthy enough, we have to go manage it by harvest. And that's what the right to hunt and fish is all about. That Amendment 2 that's coming up on the ballot on November 5th that we want you to vote yes for and we want to tell your friends about, that's a big part of the right to hunt and fish. Basically talks about and illustrates if a fishery or an animal resource needs to be managed, hunting and fishing harvest should be one of the first tools looked at. Not mandatorily used, but one of the first tools in the toolbox. So when a population gets to a point where it needs to be managed, instead of some randos going out there and killing them to a certain number, let hunters or fishermen have the opportunity to utilize that resource and enjoy the great outdoors, right? So they couldn't do that because they lost the science to back them. So all of a sudden it became a subjective argument. It became a matter of an opinion of, hey, do you feel that Goliath grouper should be allowed to be harvested? And because it's an opinion, then they had to get consensus, or at least not consensus, but they had to get agreement and a majority to pass that Goliath grouper thing. And that's what took so long for the Goliath grouper to be able to be harvestable. And that's why it's so complicated. You have to apply, you have to get a permit, you have to apply here, you have to pay this money, and you're only allowed to keep them this big, between this big. It's because it was an opinion-based discussion. Now they have science again. They're able to kill fish. Once you kill a fish, you have to mandatorily report it. You have to turn in its body to science. Now they have fisheries dependent science. Now they have fisheries independent science. And when this keeps rolling for a few years, all of a sudden, it's not a subjective conversation anymore. There's no more opinions. There's hard and fast science. And science-based fisheries management is where we want to get to. So that's what it's all about. All right, next question. Now that we went on that diatribe. Oh, time for another free trip giveaway. We did our 5-hour half day. Let's give away our Hubbard's Marina swag pack. The swag pack for one lucky winner goes to Bobby Rossi. Congratulations, Bobby. You won the Hubbard's Marina swag pack. Make sure you text us within 5 minutes your full home address to prove you're watching live. Don't forget to include your t-shirt size so we can also shoot you that as well. Now, let's get into another another question. This one that says, where do you grab a freaking grouper for a picture? They're slippery and they have thorns in their mouth and gills. You're right. They do. They're called gill rakers, and that is to prevent food from coming out of the fish's mouth when they're chewing. But there's a way to grab them, and we'll show you how. And we showed Russell Rhodes, and he did it, so you can do it too. Trust me. It's real easy. And we're there to help you. So come out and go fishing, and we'll show you how to hold a grouper for a photo. Why do they shut down amberjack in June? Yes, it is a spawning protection closure. They believe peak spawn of amberjack is June and July, and that's why they close them down. Funny story, when do red snapper spawn? Anybody? June and July. So we close down triggerfish because they spawn in June and July. We close down amberjack because they spawn in June and July. We have this stupid 20-fathom closure only for recreational fishermen because grouper might spawn in February and March. But, red snapper, our biggest economically important species in the Gulf of Mexico, let's kill them right in the middle of their spawn, guys. There's a big conversation going on right now about it doesn't matter when you remove that fish from the water. A misspawn is a misspawn. So what that conversation is if a fish or a species spawns this time of year, it doesn't matter if you take them out of the water right before they spawn, during their spawn, or right after their spawn. A removal is a removal. So basically the conversation is surrounding how spawning season protections don't help. Spawning aggregation protections, spatial area closures make sense. Like, for example, for gag grouper, if you know gag grouper concentrate in a certain area to spawn, then closing that area to protect the gag grouper spawn kind of makes sense because they concentrate and it makes it really easy to target them in that specific area. So that makes sense. But closing a whole fishery because they may be spawning then, I don't think that has much merit anymore, and science is kind of proving it. I mean, look at amberjack. We've had spawning protection closures that are both commercial and recreational. They apply commercially too. They haven't helped. Amberjack just keeps getting worse. So I think there's conversation surrounding that. But it's kind of one of those funny things, right? Is we close amberjack and triggerfish in June and July to protect them because they're spawning. But then we target red snapper during June and July. And that's when they spawn. And red snapper, what have they done? They've only gotten better. We've killed them every year during their spawn. Kind of ironic, right? All right, so next question. What bait do you use to catch that big red snapper and big gag grouper? So the big gag grouper was caught on a big cut piece of porgy, and then the red snapper was caught on a cut thread fin. I was not trying to catch the red snapper, let me tell you. Very, very clearly was avoiding the red snapper, but ended up catching a really big red snapper. And I was trying to catch mangrove snapper because we were seeing some really big mangrove snapper, and I like fishing for mangrove snapper. So I started out the trip fishing a little lighter than I should have. I had like 50-pound fluorocarbon, double 7/0 hooks, and sent those circle hooks down, 2 hooks and a chunked piece of thread fin, and like third or fourth real good hookup was taking me, and it broke off. Said that's not going to happen again. Fishing was going really well. I was expecting it to be a little tough to start because it was a full moon, right? And we were starting to fish around 6:45, 7 a.m. So the sun was up. It's a day of the full moon. We fished Thursday. The full moon was Thursday. So I was expecting the morning bite to be a little slow. So I started with a little lighter tackle because I thought it was going to be a slower bite. So I made that mistake. I ended up breaking off. I went to 80-pound leader, and 8 circles and fished those the rest of the day. Didn't break off again, and caught every single fish. And after a few fish, I cut it off and tied a fresh one. The boat would move, I'd cut my leader and tie a fresh one because I wasn't going to break off again. And the bite stayed really good, and I was able to use that heavier leader throughout the whole day. And we were catching big mangrove, so I was using chunks of threadfin targeting mangrove snapper, but I caught a scamp, I caught a porgy, I caught vermilions, I caught a nice big red snapper, and then we got to an area where there was some big grouper down there, some big red grouper were coming up, so I took one of those porgies and I cut it up, cut the head up, cut the tail off, took a big chunk of it, sent it down there, caught that big gag grouper, sent another chunk down there and caught 2 keeper red grouper on one bait. That was pretty epic. That was cool. But same thing, super slow, soft bite. So I dropped it down to bottom, feeling a couple pecks, lifted up real slowly away from them after about 2 minutes of them pecking at it, and then waited. Nothing was really happening, so I went to reel up, and as soon as I started to crank, bam. And then I let it sit there for a second, and a second one hit it, and I was able to reel them both up, so it was pretty cool. Are the 10-hour all-day fishing trips fishing deeper since the hogfish bite is slowed? Yes, 100%. During peak hogfish time, when the water's chilly, we got a lot of those cold fronts going on, we're fishing on a 10-hour trip in 40, 50 foot of water a lot of times, maybe 60 foot of water. Now, this time of year, water's hotter during the day. We're fishing closer to 80, 90, 100 foot of water on that 10-hour all-day, targeting lane snapper, mangrove snapper, and red grouper as well. Which wind direction is best, worst for offshore fishing? Static high barometer isn't good, so a east wind is generally not great because that indicates a pretty statically high barometer from a high pressure system. So east wind isn't great. Also, it makes it tougher to get out there offshore. So a lot of times an east wind is a little bit challenging. A north wind isn't great because that means it's a static low barometer behind a cold front. So north winds are typically really rough, really muddy, and the fishing kind of sucks because the barometer just fell out and stayed low. So I would say north winds, not great. East wind, not great. West wind makes it a little tough to get out there sometimes if it's blowing real hard out of the west. The south wind can get a little choppy and confused. So they all have their downfalls and their pitfalls, but I would say southwest, southwest, somewhere in there is probably better than a north or east. But I wouldn't say any of them are great. Wind is not good because it pushes waves, right? But moderate winds out of the south or west, or really moderate winds out of any direction are okay. So, about the tattoos, can you explain the rules and limits on the number of tattoos? Well, the limit would be if you're getting multiple Hubbard's Marina tattoos, I commend you, but I don't encourage that. So we're only really giving away the one credit of $1,000 in trip fare. Basically 2 free 39-hour trips for a Hubbard's Marina tattoo, and that tattoo has to be on the lower arm, either side lower arm, or it has to be lower leg, and it has to be dominant. So some people are like, well, what size? Well, if you're a feminine young lady, you might only have a room for a 3-inch square tattoo. If you're a bigger guy like myself who's 6'7", you might have room for a 7-inch tattoo, right? So it just has to be dominant across your forearm or lower leg. So lower leg, lower arm, somewhere that's going to be easily spotted, and it has to be dominant, meaning it has to dominate the forearm or calf or shin, which I don't recommend. Or face. Face tattoo is double free trips. So I want to throw that out there. No, I'm just kidding. Don't get a face tattoo, but it is also double free trips. So I'm going to throw that out there.
Don't get it, but if you do get it.
But if you do get it, it is double free trips. So... All right, let's see. Let's give away our 10-hour trip, then we'll do another question, and then we'll wrap this up. We're going overtime tonight a little bit. I got excited. So 10-hour all day for 2 free peoples for one lucky winner goes to Daniel Bieberly. Congratulations. You need another free 10-hour trip, buddy, because your last free one, you blew it. He was on the supporters trip, and he was between Christina and Lance, who were catching a ton of mangrove snapper. He was fishing next to Brian Eakins, who caught a huge red grouper, and he just couldn't get it done. Love you, Dan. And now you get another try to hopefully redeem yourself. All right, so next question. What is your preferred bait for red snapper? Nothing. I would prefer to catch anything else but. No, I'm just kidding. Red snapper, really a preferred bait is something big and stinky. Think about selectivity for red snapper. So come red snapper season, we target red snapper mainly during the day. You might see some at night, but at night we're a lot of times targeting mangrove snapper, vermilion snapper, porgies, almacos. You might see some red snapper at night, but we're not like going after the red snapper at night. Generally we do that during the day, but whenever we target the red snapper, the captain's going to make announcements and say, hey, this spot coming up should have red snapper on it. Think about selectivity, and what I mean by that is what I talked about just earlier is I went out on that 12-hour extreme trip expecting the bite to be a little slow, so I started with lighter tackle, a little bit smaller hooks. Now, if I know, hey, we're going to go target red snapper season, we got to go target red snapper. Red snapper season's open. I got to catch one of these stupid red snapper. I would use heavy tackle. I would use 80-pound test, even 100-pound test, and I would use big hooks, 8-aught hooks, even 10-aught hooks, and a really big piece of deadbait. And I drop it to bottom really slowly because those red snapper, they're dumb. They come really high up in the water column. And the biggest fish is always at the top or bottom of that water column. So if they're really dumb and they're not shy at all. So big old hooks, big old leader, big old lead, it don't matter. Big old piece of bait, whether that's a cut piece of thread or a cut piece of bonita belly, cut mullet, cut Boston mackerel is a good one. Really anything, any kind of mackerel. Anything really slimy and smelly. Big old chunk. I would probably do double snells, put 2 hooks in that bad boy, and drop it to bottom really slowly until you start to feel a little bit of pecks, a little bit of nibbles. And then kind of slow it down even more. And then let that go down to bottom. If you make it all the way to bottom, you make it to bottom. If you don't make it to bottom, you're going to get slapped by a big red snapper on the way to bottom. And because you use that bigger bait, because you use those bigger hooks, because you use that bigger leader, your selectivity should be aimed at a larger fish. If you go to that red snapper spot and you've got 40-pound test and you've got 6-aught hooks and a small piece of thread fin, you might catch a small red snapper. And then you're presented with the ethical dilemma of, do you release that legal fish in hopes to catch a larger one, which isn't ethical, not recommended. If you catch a legal red snapper, keep it, fill your quota, and then go fish for something else is what we recommend and really what you should do. But a lot of people want to catch those big red snapper. So if you want to catch those big red snapper, use big hooks, big bait, big leader, and avoid those smaller fish by using bigger baits. So think about selectivity and try to be as ethical as possible. Make sure you have a venting tool. And then once you catch your red snapper, then start going a different route, trying to rocket a small piece of bait to bottom, trying to avoid those red snapper. Then think about selectivity in the other way. All right, so gag grouper season's not open. I don't have to worry about breaking off a big gag, so I can drop it down, lighter tackle, smaller hooks, and try to rocket to bottom and try to get some of those mangrove snapper or yellowtail or some of those other fish that are below the red snapper, right? So that's what I recommend. Selectivity. All right. Do we have any really good questions that we have to answer? All the questions are really good, and we will answer them.
That one up to you.
What is the worst regulation that you have to deal with and should be changed? Turtle gear. I have to keep a freaking chew toy on the boat for turtles. And we have to have a hoop net on the boat because we're supposed to lift this 500-pound turtle that can bite my freaking leg off into the boat and put a freaking chew toy in its mouth so we can take the hook out of the turtle. Well, let me tell you, folks, and I hope the feds are listening because that rule is stupid as hell, and I'm not bringing a turtle on the boat. We keep a mandatory piece of, it's called turtle release gear. Charter boats in the Gulf of Mexico are supposed to have it. We keep it in a toolbox that we zip tie shut and then proceed to duct tape it shut. So it's zip tied and duct taped shut. And if you're boarded, you're supposed to have all this stuff. All the stuff is in this zip tied, duct taped toolbox. And if you give it to the federal boarding officers, if they want, they can cut the zip ties and duct tape off and see we have everything. But as soon as they leave, we're supposed to duct tape and zip tie it again because we got a $1,500 fine because someone took the wire cutters we're supposed to have in that stupid-ass toolbox and used them and didn't replace them. So we got a $1,500 fine because we have this long litany of list of stuff we're supposed to have in this turtle release gear box. And we didn't have wire cutters because someone had used them. And a $1,500 fine. You know what the fine is the second time we're caught? $30,000 if my chew toy is missing from this turtle release box. So that is the dumbest regulation that we have to abide by. And it is stupid as hell. And it should be removed. But the problem is sharks, sea turtles, dolphins, marine mammals, whales, highly migratory species, sharks, endangered species, turtles, are managed in other departments of NOAA. It's not NOAA Fisheries. It's not the people we deal with at Gulf Council meetings. It's not the Gulf Council. So it happens in this vacuum up in Washington, D.C., where all great laws are made. And it's also very difficult to change things. So it's one of those regulations that we didn't really have the ability to massage as it came down the pipe. And that's why it's such crap. So that is worst by far, hands down. Turtle release gear. All right, so I think we've covered everything that we needed to cover tonight. We answered a lot of great questions. We'll try to get to the rest of your questions here tonight or definitely tomorrow morning. Don't forget about Final Friday. This Friday, hopefully we're going to see every single one of you at Hubbard's Marina in Johns Pass, 6 to 9 p.m. this Friday for Final Friday. Hopefully you guys are going to remember to vote. Best charter boat in the country, second year in a row, hopefully. Voting closes tomorrow at noon. You can vote tonight. You can vote again tomorrow morning. So make sure you vote for that. And then also don't forget as well, we've got the Right to Hunt and Fish info on the website. If you go to hubbardsmarina.com, click info, and right under the info tab, the very first thing you see is the Right to Hunt and Fish. Please check out this page. Please tell your friends about the Right to Hunt and Fish. It is a very important amendment. We're trying to get this added to the Florida Constitution. It'll be pretty cool to have a constitutional right to hunt and fish. That's what it's all about, folks. Preserving that ability to get out there and enjoy the great outdoors for the next generation, because we want to be the best charter boat in the country for generations to come. Appreciate you guys for being a part of our Hubbard's Marina family. We've got our 39-hour trip for one lucky winner to give away now. Now, hopefully, you guys are going to tune in again next week. We do this every Sunday night on right here on Hubbard's Marina, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Trovo, all that good stuff. We're giving away $500 on TikTok right now. So if you go to Hubbard's Marina's TikTok channel, look at our recent videos. We're giving away $500 absolutely free. So check out Hubbard's Marina on TikTok. All you have to do is watch that video, tag 2 friends, like the video for us, and then follow our TikTok channel. And you're entered to win $500 in free stuff. So tune in every Sunday night for a chance at $1,500 free. Check out our TikTok channel for $500 free. Come out this Friday night for free food and free beer and free drinks at Final Friday. Thank you for making all of that possible here at Hubbard's Marina. Want to make sure we give a shout out to the supporters out there. If you're a part of our supporters group, we're going to start our supporters after show at 8:55. So make sure if you're a supporter, you pop over for that. Glenn Foster, thank you for those additional stars. Jennifer Neal, Barry Long with a big 500. Nick Nieves with 1,200. Larry White with 200. Zach Varner. We had our friend Mike Dixon hit us up from Engel Coolers. Daryl Johansson, again, appreciate all of you guys for the stars and support. Make sure you check out our friends over at Gator Jim's Tackle, 3301 Pinellas Point Drive South in St. Pete. Make sure you stop by, say hello, and tell them Hubbard's Marina sent you. Thank you, supporters in our supporters group. We'll see you at 8:55 for your private after show. If you want to become a supporter, it's only $4.99. You get private access to our private group and more shows and more communications. They just got a free 12-hour fishing trip. We took 55 of them out fishing for free. So become a supporter. Think about it. It's pretty fun. And with that, let's find out who won our 39-hour trip for one lucky winner. Lucky winner is Fritz from Sun City Center. Congratulations, Fritz. My man. Been watching for a real long time. Since the beginning, for sure. Been with us for a long time. So big shout out to you, Fritz. Congratulations. Remember, you got 5 minutes or less to text us your full home address. Prove you're watching live. Hopefully we'll see the rest of you guys next week. Hopefully we'll see you this Friday for Final Friday. Don't forget to vote, and don't forget to get out there and go fishing. Take advantage of this beautiful weather window. Don't forget, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too darn busy. Tuesday's 10-hour trip is the trip to do. 21 people on it. Beautiful weather. Great fishing. Don't suck. Don't miss that. You guys have a good night. We'll see you for the supporters after show, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for being a part of our Hubbard's Marina family.